Come, sit down, and look into my crystal ball. I see a top hat, a pink couch, and a box. Yes, I see it! It was the Baron in the game room with Mysterium. Yes, hello and welcome to the Baron's Game Room. I'm Aaron as always, and today for our final episode of the spooky month, we're going to be talking about the spooky game of Mysterium. Ooh. Mysterium is a cooperative clue-guessing game for 2 to 7 players. In Mysterium, one player will play as the ghost of a murdered victim from long ago, trying to convey clues about their murder to the psychics that have decided to enter Mysterium Manor. Unfortunately, at sunrise, though, the ghost will disappear, so you only have a certain number of turns to establish the who, what, and where of the situation. But the dead communicating with the living is very difficult, and all you'll be able to communicate with are these abstract visions that you can send to the psychics, that they must interpret to define who killed you. Now there's a good bit of set for this, so let's hurry up and jump into it. Each player will need to select a psychic to play as. They will need a little pouch, they will need a crystal ball, and they will need a stack of what we call these clairvoyancy tokens. You will need a certain number depending on the players. For 5 to 6, you'll use all of them. Keep in mind that one player will always be the ghost, so in a 5-player game, you will have 4 players as psychics and 1 player as the ghost. Most of the rules I'm going over are for the max player count, which is going to be either 5 or 6 players as psychics and 1 player as the ghost. So again, a 6 or 7 player game. Set up your clock and make sure the hand is turned to 1. Place the timer on the table. Set up the ghost screen in front of the ghost player. Give the ghost player the large stack of vision cards, the crow tokens, these player marker tokens, which you'll use at the board here in a bit, and these number tokens, which will be used at the end of the game. As for the psychic side of the table, you'll have these dividers for the places, the people, places, and items. You'll have this tracker at top, make sure it's the correct side up for your player count, and then have these clairvoyancy level trackers, one for each player right there. And now let's get to finishing up the board here with the people, places, and things. Repeat this process one at a time for the people, places, and weapons by shuffling the deck, then dealing out a certain number based on a table you'll find in the rulebook. I'll tell you for a full player count of 6 psychics and 1 ghost player. At the medium difficulty level, you'll deal out 8 of these cards. So take the top 8 of these cards, and then you will need to read out the numbers listed in the corner to the ghost player. The ghost will then, using their own deck of similar cards, find those exact same matching numbers and place the rest just back into the box. Place all 8 of the cards you drew out on the table face up above this little marker area here, and then repeat that process again for the places and the weapons. As for the ghost player, after you've taken all the cards that match the ones on the table, you will then assign 6 of them to each, or 1 to each player. So again, we're playing a full player count game, so 6 psychics. I would take 1 of these and slide it in each of these 6 little player slots going around my hidden board here. Very secretively, of course. Then at the very end, the 2 you don't use, you will simply secretively return back to the box, so no other player knows which 2 are not part of the options for this game. Again, repeat that same process for the locations and the weapons as well for the ghost. By the end, your board should look something like this. Then have each player place all of their crystal ball tokens down here at the little player location spot to start off the game. When finished for the ghost, you should see this, a person, place, and item in each track going around the board, 1 for each player. You should also have these at the bottom of each track to help you remind which players are assigned to each of these sets of people, places, and weapons. And finally, have the ghost player draw 7 of these vision cards as their opening hand, and then let's start the game. Now, there is a specific order in which players have to figure out all the clues. You have to figure out in order, person, then place, then weapon. You cannot give a player clues about the place you died before they figure out the person. And you cannot give them any clues on what they killed you with before they figure out the place. All players have to figure it out in order, person, place, weapon. Now, all players might figure those out at a different time frame. Some players might figure out the person on the first turn, and it might take some other players a couple of turns before they do it. That's fine. The players that do successfully figure it out will move up and start guessing the place, while the other players are still guessing the person. Now, to be clear, you didn't get murdered 6 different times. You only got murdered once. but you've been dead for a while and things are kind of foggy and hazy. What you are doing is you are helping the psychics build up a profile of possibility for each one. So in a 6-player game, you'll have 6 different possibilities of the person, place, and item. And once they've helped you form all that together, then that's when it'll finally dawn back on you. Yes, I remember it was actually that one specifically, where you will then do a final round of hopefully having them guess correctly which of these possibilities is the true answer to the mystery of who killed you, where they killed you, and what they killed you with. So each turn, the ghost player will look at the vision cards in their hand and can give any number of them to the psychics playing the game. Now, you cannot sit here and give one over there and then one over here and then another one back to this player. You have to pick one player at a time to give a set to. And once you've given them some cards, you cannot give them any more cards this round. So for this character, they have a lot of food on their thing and some coins and stuff like that. I might give them this one, hoping the characters pay attention to the apples that this guy is reaching for. Or maybe I give them this one because it's got outdoorsy stuff and she's got like potatoes and I don't know, a leek or something right there. Or maybe this one because it's got like forks and knives and spoons, and maybe they'll associate it with her and the food. Or maybe I give them this one because I feel like that doorknob there looks a lot like the coin she has on her thing. Doesn't matter. I can look at these, interpret what I want, and then give any number of these to this purple player. So maybe I want to give them all 4 of those. And I take all 4 of these vision cards and hand them over to the purple player. They will then take these and start looking at them, and I will draw 4 more cards off the top of the sack, so that I'll always have 7 cards in my hand. Then I can go ahead and push this up to show that I've given her cards, and I still need to give cards to every other player here, repeating that process. You have to give them at least 1 card every turn. You can't not give them any cards, but there's not a set number. You have to give them at least 1 up to your whole hand of 7 if you wanted to, which would be kind of crazy, but you could if you wanted to. Now, as a psychic, once you have been handed your vision cards, it is your job to look at these vision cards and try to extrapolate any clues you can from the pictures and decide which of the person, places, whatever level you're at, they are trying to get you to guess. This is cooperative, so you can show these to other players. All players can look at the visions you were given. You can all talk it out together as to how you might interpret these vision cards. Once you think you might know who they're trying to get you to guess, I gave this to the purple player technically, move this out of here, anyway, you'll take your little crystal ball and you'll place it on whichever one you think might be the answer. So if they got all the things that I told you the ghost was trying to go for, they could place it right there on her. But maybe what they got from it instead was how that bear shows outside. And this is an adventurer who goes outside a lot. And maybe they did recognize that little golden doorknob, but they thought of it more as the little golden guy on this. So maybe she puts it there instead. You don't know. It's all up to the player to just figure out what clues they think they understand and place it on the board. Once all psychics have placed their crystal balls on a card, you can have multiple people on the same card. It is totally a thing you are allowed to do. Clearly, they cannot both be right, but still you are allowed to do that. Once you've done that, each player will now place some of their clairvoyancy tokens if they want. Those are these things that we handed out earlier. On one side of them are numbers. You won't use those till later. For most of the game, you'll be using the check mark and X side of them. Basically, a check mark means you think that player guessed correctly. So if the blue player believes the purple player here guessed correctly, they would place that right there. However, if they thought they guessed incorrectly, they would place an X. Obviously, you cannot guess on yourself. You cannot be like, oh no, I definitely got it right. That's not how it works. And you cannot put multiple clairvoyancy tokens on the same player. So you couldn't do this. You couldn't have 2 check marks. It's only 1 per player, but you are allowed to put 1 per player. So technically, if you wanted to in a turn, you could put 1 there, and 1 here, and 1 there, and 1 there, and 1 there. Sure, and every player gets to do that. Once every player is done placing any clairvoyance tokens they want, again, you don't have to place any. Once you're all done with that, it'll be time for the ghost to reveal whether each player, individually one at a time, was correct in their guess or incorrect in their guess. Let's go over each of those options. If a player guessed correctly, you will tell them, yes, that is correct. They will take their crystal ball and move it up to the next level right here. They will take the card that they guessed correctly, bring it over, and slide it into the little pouch. I'm having trouble with this. Slide it into this little pouch they were given. There we go. And they will take any vision cards you gave them and give them back to the ghost so they can discard them away. If a player guessed incorrectly, you simply tell them, no, I'm sorry, that is incorrect. They will move back to the little landing area for whichever one they're on. The card will stay out, and they will keep any vision cards you already gave them, so any more vision cards you gave them will be added to this next turn. So you only turn your vision cards in once you guess correctly. Otherwise, you keep them and can add on with new ones later. We also can't forget the clairvoyancy tokens. So going back to this one, this player guessed correctly, and the blue player also guessed correctly that this player guessed correctly. They believed, yes, they did have that right. So since they correctly guessed that, you will then come up here and move the blue little level tracker up one number. Easy enough. You'll do that for every player that has a correctly guessed clairvoyancy token. If this were an X, that would be another point for them, but unfortunately it's not. They thought they had it right as well, and as we said, that was wrong. So, no points given to them for that. At the end, regardless of whether it was correct or wrong, you'll take all the clairvoyancy tokens that were used this round and discard them away over here on the little matching color spots in front of the clock here. You do have a limited number of clairvoyancy tokens, so whereas you are technically allowed to use all of them in one turn if you want to, I don't really recommend it. Also, you have a limited number of each right and wrong. Only 3 of yours are corrects and only 3 of yours are incorrects. So you'll want to be doing some guessing both directions either way. But they're not lost forever. You don't have to go a whole game with just those 6 because you do get them back on a certain turn. Once you've told every player whether they are correct or incorrect and everyone has taken their cards properly and yada yada, all that stuff we've just said, you will then move the tracker up one thing to the next turn, and you will see this little symbol right here that looks a lot like these. Yes, once you reach the 4th turn of the game, at the start of the 4th turn, you will return any used clairvoyancy tokens back to the players. So, you do get them back, but only on the 4th turn. Oh yes, and I guess I didn't mention the hourglass. We really never use it when we play, but the hourglass is supposed to be, once you've dealt out all the vision cards, you flip that over, and players have a certain amount of time until that runs out to make their decision on who they think or what they think, whatever, whichever low to make their decision on what their guess is for the turn. Now, there is still one more phase of this game, but remember, we only get there if every player, every psychic, manages to properly guess the person, place, and weapon assigned to them on the back of the little ghost divider thing. If even one psychic manages to not get their proper set of person, place, and weapon, then you all unfortunately lose the game. However, assuming everyone does, which they usually do by the end of turn 7, then you will go on to the next phase, which we'll go over here in just a sec. Before we go into the final phase here, I notice I haven't talked about the crows yet. These you will use a certain number depending on how easy or hard you want the game. In an easy game, you will be allowed 1 crow per turn. In a normal game, you'll be allowed 3 crows for the whole game. And in a hard game, you'll only be allowed 1 crow per game. Now, what do these do? If you choose to use a crow token, you simply take it and slide it on top of your thing here. And what this allows you to do as the ghost player is discard any number of vision cards from your hand and draw that many back. So if I'm trying to give clues and I feel like I don't have any good ones for what I'm trying to get people to guess right now, I could play that, discard away, let's say 3 of them, and draw me 3 new fresh ones. Since normally you only get new ones when you give them out to players. Crows let you just kind of discard some away you don't have a good use for. Alright, let's get on to the final round of the game, where every player will end up placing out their person, place, and weapon on the table in front of them, and it'll be time for the ghost to try and establish which one of those is the correct answer to the mystery as a whole. Each player will remove the cards they should have been storing in their pouch throughout the game and place them in front of them, like so. So now we see the bonnet lady here in the kitchen with the fork is one of the possibilities for who killed the ghost player. The ghost player will also give each player their little player tracker here, and they will flip it over so they can see the number on the back and place that right by their thing. So we now see that this is option 1 of, since we have a full player game, of 6. Once every player has done that, it'll be the time for the final round, where the ghost will place out exactly 3 cards. one card representing the correct person, one card representing the correct place, and one card representing the correct weapon that all come from the same group. So like that set I showed you, number 1, I would need to place down 3 cards that each pertain to that fat lady with the potatoes, the kitchen, and the fork. 3 cards representing one of each of those things. So as the ghost player, I would look at my hand and look what vision cards I have available to me, use that based on the information I know, which is all of the correct setups. Then I would use these number ones I told you about earlier. And I'd find which one I think I have the best chance of getting them to guess. Let's say I think I do have the best chance of getting them to guess that one. Then I would take this token right here with the number 1 on it, since we know that matches this one. And I would take it and make sure I secretively put it face down with the question mark up out here right there. So as a ghost, I've now selected my 3 vision cards. I will mix these up and then place them face down on the center of the table, like so. And before the ghost is allowed to reveal any of the 3 vision cards they selected, they will then need to check the little clairvoyancy level tracker up here. Again, players will have been accumulating points up here for every correct little guess with those clairvoyancy tokens they were using earlier in the game. Depending on how far up the track they are, decides how many of the 3 vision cards they will get to see before making their final guess. If a player has not made it up to at least 7 here on this track, then they will only get to see 1 of the cards. Any player that's made it between 7 and 9 will get to see 2 of them, and any player that was lucky enough to make it to 10 or higher will get to see all 3 cards before making their final guess. How this will work is we will reveal 1 card. Then any player, again, that has not reached a level 2 will be forced to make their guess. This is how that works. Each player will have already been given back all of their clairvoyancy tokens and have flipped them over to the number side now. So what they are going to do is they're going to look at the clue they were given, look at all the possibilities around the table as to who it could be, then based off that 1 clue, they're going to make a guess. If the blue player thinks it might be whoever number 4 was and whatever their combination was, they would secretly take 4, you'll probably hide these in your hand so no one sees what your choice is, and slip 4 into your little, there we go, into your little sleeve here. And then hand your sleeve to whichever player got the highest on the track. So whoever the yellow player is, you would take your little sleeve with your guess in it and slip it over to the yellow player. I shouldn't know the blue, I should have with red or white. Anyway, red or white would have both done this. Then you do the same thing again, but we flip over 1 more card. Flip over 1 more card, and then everyone in the level 2 section. So now blue and black would do the same thing. They would look at their numbers, slip 1 into their little sleeve, and pass it over to the yellow player. And finally, you'll flip over the 3rd and final vision card, to which purple and yellow would get to make their final guess, meaning they'd slip a number into their sleeve, and then yellow will take all of the accumulated little sleeves here and begin the final thing of dumping them out and tallying which guess got the most accusations? Yeah, sure. So yellow will end up dumping out each of these and count up 1 for each player. Whichever number it gets the most votes is the final choice of the group. If there is a tie for any reason, then the yellow player is the tiebreaker. So if there's a tie between, let's say, 4 and 1 by the end of it, then it's up to the yellow player to decide which one of those is the true final answer. Once the players have made their official guess, they will simply reach over here and flip over this token to see if they guessed correctly. If they guess incorrectly, then unfortunately, you all lose the game. But assuming enough players, the majority of players did understand what these 3 clues were getting at. Personally, what I was seeing was the egg here was for kitchen. The fish mouth kind of looks like that lady's bonnet, plus there's a lady on it. And in this one, there is this one that very much looks like a fork to me. That's what I was going for here. If they guess correctly, then hooray! You officially solved the murder of the poor ghost victim. And that should be really everything you need to know on how to play Mysterium. Personally, for my group, we absolutely love this game. Usually I get stuck as a ghost, but that's no problem. I like that role. We get tons of laughs out of trying to interpret the cards. Usually the way we work is once someone guessed correctly, I start telling them kind of what my thought process was on the cards, and you get some good ahas and of course, and hey, you got exactly what I was going for. And then you get some other funny like running jokes with our group, which is, hold on, wait, let me turn the card upside down, because one time I had a card that had like a big column on it, and if you looked at it upside down, I thought it looked like a chef's hat, and that's why I gave it to him. And once I told him that, it's now become a long-running joke of, but wait, did you look at the card upside down? Whereas this game would probably be pretty hard for a group of kids to play, a game that has an adult or two in it is very easy to play with a bunch of kids, I feel like, as long as the adults kind of being the one coaching and guiding through it all, like being the ghost player and stuff. I have played this with some really young nephews of mine who were like 6, 7, which the box does say 7 and up, and they did a great job. They also did a really great job of convincing everyone of the wrong answer right at the very end. They did a lot of decent interpretation throughout the game, and at the very end, someone, his mom particularly, completely accurately guessed right the exact thing I was trying to get them to guess from each of the 3 final clues. She pointed out, like, I think this is that, this is that, this is that, nailed it. And then he went, but wait, and gave another interpretation of each of them that was fairly sound, and they were like, nope, I'm convinced, he's right. That he was wrong. But yes, kids can play the game, adults can play the game. I think it's a good all-arounder. It's got a good, fun little spooky theme. If you like Clue, this is just way better Clue in my opinion, you know? Clue's a classic you can play. This is absolutely just better Clue. Like I said, it can be a bit much to kind of keep up with, all the this and that. It's got quite a bit of setup to it, but once you get going from there, it really is just looking at some weird art and going, I think maybe you're telling me this. So super simple as a whole. Really cannot recommend this game enough. It's going to be pretty obvious what rating this game's going to get. Mysterium is a fantastic, spooky good time for pretty much all ages. It can be a little bit of a table hog if you don't have a big place to play. It might be difficult to play it, and it can be a little pricey. Not too bad. It's honestly, these days you can find it pretty cheap. But if that's a problem for you guys, then there is Mysterium Park, which is a small box spin-off of the game. It plays almost basically the exact same, but it takes up less space on your shelf, less space on the table, and it's a little cheaper to buy in total. I might talk about this one next week, but back to Mysterium itself. Mysterium is very obviously, if you couldn't tell, Baron approved.